So I wanted to bring up a little bit of a thought experiment. This isn't a video going over some news or anything that's happened lately, but instead, I wanted to discuss a trade that happened back in 2023 that was one of the biggest trades on the market. However, you could very well say that the Montreal Canadiens might have just been the winners of the trade. Today, we are talking about Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Erik Karlsson. Because when it comes to his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins, things have been very weird. We know that his entire tenure as the San Jose Sharks defenseman that he was riddled with injuries, big money contracts, and a 101-point season last year, which won him the Norris Trophy. This year, after being traded over to Pittsburgh, Karlsson has 46 points in 71 games played, a fraction of the point production he had last year, albeit with a better team. Odd how that works. Karlsson, of course, is no longer playing for a system where he is pretty much every second puck touch like he was in San Jose. He is not the only guy who can actually create offense and produce points, hence the lower production and hence the potentially disappointing numbers. Now, when it comes to Karlsson, his current contract is pretty beefy, $10 million AAV against the Penguins cap till 26-27. That was initially an $11.5 million deal. With San Jose, they just retained salary. So Karlsson right now, at 33 years old, will keep on making 8 digits against the Pittsburgh Penguins cap until he is 37. And I guess that's not the best ideal situation to have. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. If we go over to the trade, though, which saw Erik Karlsson get sent over to Pittsburgh, it was a 3-team trade. And it does involve the Montreal Canadiens, which is why I'm saying, yeah, maybe this is why. Maybe this is a situation where they ended up winning the trade, because it was a 3-team swap where the Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Erik Karlsson, Dylan Hamiluk, and a 3rd-round pick from the Sharks, plus Rem Pitlick from the Montreal Canadiens. The San Jose Sharks acquired the contract of Mike Hoffman from the Canadiens, as well as Mikael Granlund, Jan Rutta, and a first from Pittsburgh, and the Habs themselves acquired Jeff Petry with 25% salary retained, with Casey DeSmith, Nathan Legare, and a 2025 second. Now, when you talk about the value of all the assets involved here, you could say that Montreal didn't really win anything. They got Jeff Petry, whom they flipped over to Detroit for Gustav Lindstrom and another pick. They got Casey DeSmith, whom they traded over to Vancouver for Tanner Pearson. They got Nathan Legare, whom they also traded away, and they also got themselves a second. Maybe it's not the best piece of business here. But when it comes to what the Canadiens ended up trading away in this scenario, this is where the real value comes in. Because the Canadiens, all they had to do in this 3-team trade was send away Rem Pitlick over to Pittsburgh, who was making $1.1 million a year, and they also traded away Mike Hoffman and his $4.5 million AAV salary. With all things considered, Hoffman was pretty much a salary cap dump. Rem Pitlick is now in Chicago, where he unfortunately has not played many games with the Blackhawks. He's mostly just been in the AHL. But the fact that the Montreal Canadiens freed up this money by trading away Hoffman and trading away Pitlick, sure, they acquired Jeff Petry, and sure, they retained salary when they traded Petry over to Detroit. But when you think about a lot of the flexibility that was opened up with this trade for Montreal, on top of getting some extra draft picks in the Tanner Pearson, Casey DeSmith trade, and just a tad more flexibility on their end, you have to start thinking about them as being one of these teams that had a lot to gain. San Jose got a lot out of this trade as well. Mikael Granlund has been a very good player for them this season. Jan Rutta has always been pretty good. I mean, I've been a fan of Rutta's game ever since his days with the Lightning winning those Stanley Cups. And then there was a 1st-round pick on top of that too. But because Erik Karlsson's value was so weird, he was a 100-point guy that not too many people wanted to go out there and trade for because he was so expensive and he's so old, that's kind of why the Sharks had to bite the bullet a little bit and say, okay, well, if the only way we're going to get this trade to work is if we get Mike Hoffman in return, then okay, fine, let's just get him on here. It's also kind of funny because Mike Hoffman and Erik Karlsson happen to have some very bad history, and just seeing these two guys linked in some sort of a transaction together makes things even more humorous. But for Montreal, the salary cap flexibility that was opened up by trading away Hoffman and Pitlick and eventually Jeff Petry, this was a pretty big deal because it allowed the Canadiens to do a lot of fun things with their salary cap this year and during the trade deadline. They traded away Sean Monahan, which was a really good move because they got themselves yet another draft pick to help them out. They traded away Jake Allen for another pick, which is great. And now with the Montreal Canadiens, they have a pretty good amount of cap space heading into the 2024 offseason. Now, I get it. You could say that, oh, when it comes to Mike Hoffman, that guy was expiring, or his contract was expiring in 2024 anyway, so what exactly gives here? Where's the benefit? Well, the benefit comes when you think about all the other trades that resulted as a product of the Carlsson trade. Petry traded away for a pick. Casey DeSmith traded away for Tanner Pearson and a pick. Legare traded away for an AHL player that is helping out, and another second-round pick that the Canadiens got too, all four shelling away Mike Hoffman and Rem Pitlick. That's a pretty good deal. And when you compare it to the, let's just say, success of some of the other teams involved, you could debate that the magnitude of the Canadiens getting all these draft picks was a bigger win than what Pittsburgh accomplished by getting Erik Karlsson and by what San Jose is getting in the package of roster players that they got in Ruda, Granlund, and Hoffman. Sure, they got a pick as well. Like, a first-round pick from Pittsburgh is certainly a lot more valuable this year than it would have been in any other years because the Penguins have unfortunately fallen off a little bit. But when it comes to the Sharks, they had to get a lot of these guys. So I think when it comes to assets that will help out these teams in the future, let alone Erik Karlsson and his old age and old expiring contract, the Pittsburgh Penguins kind of have no choice but to hope that Erik Karlsson still provides value. But with the Montreal Canadiens, they got the most bang for their buck for all the stuff that they ended up giving up. It was good that they got rid of Hoffman and Pitlick because it freed up money. It was good that they traded away Petry, DeSmith, and of course Hoffman and Pitlick because they got a bunch of draft picks in return. It's a huge win-win-win for Kent Hughes, and for the San Jose Sharks, you could say that they just needed to get these players to help them be cap compliant and just try to make up the money that Erik Karlsson was making against their salary cap. They still had to retain on Carlsson too, so you could debate that there was already somewhat of a negative aspect to this trade for San Jose, but we all kind of knew that was going to exist here. So at the end of the day, when it comes to what these teams gave up, what these teams held on to, and the value of those assets that are going to stick around, I feel like the extra draft picks the Canadiens got for Petry and DeSmith, plus what Legare fetched in Durando as well as a second-round pick, these are going to help the Canadiens more, I think, than what Mike Hoffman, Granlund, Ruda, and a first are going to do for San Jose, and for sure, more than what Erik Karlsson is going to do for Pittsburgh. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not the Montreal Canadiens ended up winning the Erik Karlsson trade. Do you agree or disagree with this assessment? Do you think the Canadiens made out like bandits? Do you think this is just really a nothing thing from their point of view? Oh, they got draft picks. How great is that, right? Like, draft picks are only draft picks. They don't have as much value until you use them. Is that philosophy reigning true in this particular conversation? Do you agree with my perception that they did win the trade, or do you think San Jose got the most value because of the assets that they have right now? Is Pittsburgh still in a position to reap the benefits of Erik Karlsson and his play, or were they doomed to fail from the very beginning? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.